Again, welcome back. We are in week 1, 2, 3, 4 already. We're halfway through the Small Biz Educational Series. We've had conversations on identifying what opportunities are right for you. We've talked about estimating those opportunities, identifying all the, before we talked about estimating, we talked about project management. Being able to make sure we have a comprehensive look on all of the intricate details that go on with managing the project. Week 3, we talked about estimating, again, really thinking about worst case scenarios to make sure you and your stakeholders are protected. And you're countering those worst case scenarios into your estimating. Or not even worst case scenarios, but just the many factors or variables that go into the opportunity, making sure that you're fiscally accounting for them in your estimations. And so this week, we're going to talk about scheduling and budgeting. Before we get started, you all know our housekeeping rules. Audio muted until called upon or until Mr. Martin opens the floor for any questions or discussion. We, of course, encourage you to keep your videos on, but totally understand if you decide not to. We do want you to be engaged and ask questions. We invite Tim Martin of SPAAN Tech and other industry-leading experts to come in and talk to us, not only for the information and the education from the experiences, but also for us to start to build relationships with these folks. Ask questions, be engaged. Utilize those, the Q&A chat box or the chat box to put your questions in at any point you think of it, but we will have select times to grab those questions from there. At around 5 p.m.-ish, wherever Tim gets to a good pausing point, we'll take a 5-minute break just to stand up, go to the restroom, get some water, or just stretch. Cool? Cool. Today's agenda, we'll go around the room as always with our brief introductions, AKA pitches, right? Imagine Mr. Martin has the perfect contract opportunity in his hand waiting for you. You want to let him know who you are and why he should give it to you. We'll dive into just a brief discussion about last week's estimating conversation, and then we'll dive right into Tim Martin's presentation on schedule and on budget. Of course, we'll open up the floor at the end for Q&A, but encouraging you at any point to go ahead and drop your questions in the chat box. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go person by person for the pitches, for the introductions. If you can just unmute yourself when I call you and then go on mute when you're done. First up on my camera is Mr. Yates.
Okay, how you doing today? My name is Richard Yates. I'm the owner of REA Masonry LLC. We're a small minority firm, MBE, BBE certified. We've been in business for about 3.5 years now. We're currently working on a CIBC bank, a Wintrust bank, and a Seaway bank. Some of the projects that we completed was the Cook County Hospital, CTA Green Line, American Airlines Hangar 1, and I think that's about it. But nice to see everyone again.
Thank you, Richard. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Yes. Okay, good. Next, we have my colleague, Chanel Harmon.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to see everyone returning. My name is Chanel Harmon. I'm the coordinator for Small Business Development and Outreach for Chicago Transit Authority.
Thank you, Chanel. Lacey? Hey, Lacey.
Hi, my name is Lacey Ruther. I'm with Illini Drilled Foundations. We're a deep foundation specialty subcontractor, and we're just trying to learn how to do more and better business with CTA and other affiliates.
Awesome. Thank you, Lacey. I see Facet Engineering on. Uh-oh, you're on mute there.
Yeah. Hi, how you guys doing today? By the way, thank you very much for putting this stuff together. This is really beneficial. We're a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering firm. DBE actually in 21 states, with strongholds in Atlanta and Chicago. Working right now on the RPM, the Blue Line. We just got 2 more CTA tasks. We're working on the remote concourses for the O'Hare state and lake elevated stations. We're extremely strong in the transit markets, the aviation markets, and the water waste and water markets and movable bridges.
Awesome. I don't know if we caught your name.
Oren Skidelsky, sorry.
Owens, that's okay. Thank you. Mr. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike with Allstate Concrete Cutting. We're a concrete cutting company and demolition. And some of our past work that we've completed is we've done the O'Hare saw cut and ceiling, I-90 project from 53 to busing the bridges and the roadways. Just wrapped up on Eden Spur. And we also do interior hospital work and stuff like that, coring and sawing of the interior decks. And we're an MBE, BEPD, and DBE certified contractor.
Thank you, Mike. Melissa?
There you go. Hello, everyone. Melissa Fuller with MTC Properties 1. I am the owner. We are certified DBE, MBE, my goodness, WBE, PDBD for people with disabilities. And we're looking for an opportunity to supply prime contractors with modular equipment for their projects.
Thank you. Next we have Trey.
Hi, everybody. This is my first meeting. I'm sorry. I'm taking over for Danielle Sutherland, who is a representative for QRSE. My name is Trey Kraut. We are a mostly construction management firm based out of Honolulu, Hawaii. I am actually the only Illinois employee trying to build our office here in Illinois. My background is design consulting. So that's mostly what we'd be seeking here in Illinois. Whether it be highways, bridges, water, mostly transportation, potentially aviation. Nice to meet you all and look forward to the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Trey. If you can do me a favor, Trey, can you drop your email, your first and last name and email in the chat box for me?
Sure.
Thank you. Next we have Marina. Okay. Uh-oh, we were beginning to hear you, Marina.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Elda Manion, Garces Contractors, a small plumbing company on the west side of Chicago, Austin area. We do sewer, water, plumbing, excavation. We currently service Macy's. We are working on a small portion of the RMPM. And we do all kind of plumbing, any water main. We do water main for the city of Chicago as well. So thank you guys for having us, and nice to see everybody again this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Next we have Beatrice. Uh-oh.
Hi there. I'm Beatrice Steele with Lawn Care Maven. We are an eco-friendly lawn care and landscaping company here in the Chicagoland area.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Harmon.
Hello, everyone. This is Curtis Harmon, Fidelity Plumbing. We're an MBE, DBE plumbing contractor for the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago. We do residential and commercial plumbing construction, and we also do sewer repair work. And we also are signatory with Local 130. Thank you.
Thank you. Javier?
Hi, everyone. This is Javier Cadena from PM at Studio ARQ. We are a Chicago-based architectural firm. We are MBE certified.
Awesome, thank you. Divi? Divi Logan? I see a 615 area code telephone number. No? And did I miss anyone else? Awesome. Great pitches, guys. I see the improvement each time. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable. I always challenge folks, if you can tell me what you do in 5 words, sometimes that just helps train the brain to concisely articulate what it is you do in the event that you only have that 60 seconds on the elevator, you can get it all out. Okay, Divi is here, but having some audio problems. Not a problem. Whenever you get connected, Divi, feel free to jump in. Just any thoughts about the estimating conversation last week? Has anyone had to put what they learned last week into action, or in any new development of your estimating? Did you consider new things based on our conversation last week? Any comments, thoughts, or experiences on that? I'm gonna pick on people, and it won't be my usual, my faves. Uh-oh, look at all the heads go down. Trey, you weren't here with us last week, so we're gonna throw you off to the wolves, CTA style. Just any of your thoughts, or I know you mentioned you're the only one here in Illinois. Any geographical things that you have to consider being here in Illinois when you're doing your estimating that you may not experience in your other markets?
So are you talking about estimating for a project, or
Yep.
estimating as a company?
Projects.
Right, obviously the location is a huge factor for us. Prices in Illinois versus Hawaii are significantly different. So when you got to take in, especially now with COVID, I don't know how prices have changed, due to the impacts of suppliers. I know wood has doubled, just like a 2x4. So, when estimating for forms for concrete, you got to take that into consideration. I mean, in Hawaii, it's just in general, supplies are all shipped in. There's nothing really manufactured in Hawaii. So those are just a couple of my quick thoughts on that.
No, I appreciate it. It came up last week about the wood, the increase in wood, and how that's impacting pricing and estimating. So good point there. I do have a couple of questions that came in the inbox. Apparently, I did not send the presentation for last week. No one got the presentation from last week? No. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I thought I hit send on that. I'll get that out right after today, in addition to today's presentation as well. Another question was, how can you all kind of connect with each other, which we strongly encourage. I think 2 of the participants in this group have actually come from another cohort similar that was ran through HACIA. And we were just talking earlier at the start of this series of how they built relationships and, friendships even. So we definitely want to encourage that. I'll send a contact list. If anyone objects, feel free to email me privately. But I'll send a contact list with everyone's first, last name, at least phone and email to everyone in this group, so that you all can definitely follow up, and we encourage teaming for contracts. and just kind of peer relationship. We know the struggles and challenges of small businesses, and sometimes you just need a fellow entrepreneur just to hear your woes. So feel free to engage when and where appropriate, and I'll make sure I support that by providing you all a contact list for this series. Did I miss any other questions? Okay. Any other comments about estimating from last week's discussion? Okay. Won't spend a lot of time here. We have a good presentation to dive into today, which is a good segue for Tim Martin from SPAAN Tech to start the presentation on schedule and on budget. Mr. Martin, the floor is yours.
Sorry, I was muted. Let's go to the next slide, and we can get into the agenda. What I base this course on is really the contract. I would urge each and every one of you to read the contract before you get into trouble. Because once you're in trouble, you're not looking at things, you're not paying attention to things, you're missing things that are key in the contract. So the first and best advice I can give you is look at that contract, look at terms and conditions, look at performance, change order process and payments and things like that. That's absolutely key. But we're going to first assess what the project is. Do you have the skill set for it? You know, is it right up your alley, or are you walking away from your normal and trying to expand your business? And there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to assess that project. You have to have the capacity to perform, and I'll give you a couple examples where it just, the contractor did not know that he didn't have the capacity, and it's sad. And then resources and teaming. It's great that you're all asking, how do I team here? How do I do this? I've known Oren for more than a few years, and teaming is something that's absolutely key. You team with somebody that you can get along with. You don't team with somebody who's got a bad reputation. And we all know that it takes a long time to build a reputation, but boy, you can scorch it in a day. So, and I'll spend a lot of time on contract terms and conditions here. And what you really need to know when you're jumping into a project is the schedule. What is the general contractor schedule? What does the contract say that the schedule is? Is it working days? Is it calendar days? Is it a date certain complete? So you've got to lay out your schedule and work backwards and forwards in that. And that's going to take a lot of relationship building with the prime superintendent, because you need to know more than, hey, you got to be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow to start forming concrete or laying pipe or doing something. So knowing what the schedule is key. Schedule of quantities. This is how you get paid. Okay, do you get paid by a lineal foot, by each? And you got to make sure that your schedule of quantities is right, because not that design engineers have ever been known to make mistakes, but sometimes they'll drop a zero. There's a bridge over South Lake Shore Drive that the contractor only estimated half the steel on. So boom, right there, all the quantities were blown, the budget was blown, a lot of finger pointing at everybody. So timely documentation. Everybody has one of these. This is your documentation. Pictures. Whether you're good at filing or not, you want timely documentation of what's going on. So, and then what everybody hates doing is closing out a job. So let's go to the next one and start diving. Next slide. Yeah, perfect. The City of Chicago, Cook County, IDOT, Tollway, and even some private groups put out early notices of projects. I'm fond of saying, once that project is advertised and you're not on a team, it's tough. It's almost impossible. So you want to start your networking all the time. You don't want to wait until that project's out and then beg and plead. So information gathering is a lot harder this year than it ever has been. I mean, we're all used to going to various different events, whether it's Department of Procurement Services, whether it's aviation, any of these departments, they all have their own networking events. CTA, great networking events. Used to be in them all the time. You can't do, this is it. This is what we can do. And it's tougher. It's a lot tougher to get out there. So, and with that, you know, you got to pitch yourself to some of these prime contractors. The base percentages for MWDBEs are creeping up. The agencies, the public agencies, are looking at the prime performance on their, you know, everybody's got the B2B. And if you're reporting off by a couple of bucks, or if your prime, I'm sorry, if your prime is reporting a couple of bucks off, you have your right to contest it in this B2B system. So it's making life a little easier. Talking to primes, cold calling, that's how you got to do it now. It's a little easier to go out to breakfast, lunch, or dinner now, but not much. So you got to meet the primes. You got to talk to them. You got to get on the phone. You got to get their attention, and that's going to be key. And pitching that I did this on this project, and I brought it home on time, and no claims against either of us. So next slide, please. Capacity to perform. This is where a lot of you do have the capacity to perform and grow. And I've heard a number of different, yeah, I can do that. I'm looking at expanding. I'm looking at doing this. Know when you're going to reach your capacity. And what is that? What are the telltale signs? During my tenure at Chicago Public Schools, we were building a lot of new schools. We were rehabbing a lot of schools. And there was one MEP subcontractor that did absolutely great work. And he worked himself into the into a tizzy. And so he brought his brother in to be a superintendent at another school. And it worked pretty good. They were doing well. Then he brought a cousin in, and they blew it. He went out of business because they didn't know how to bill the prime contractor. They weren't watching productivity or anything else. And it was so sad to see it, because we couldn't do anything about it. We can't, you know, there are now new programs that help you with that. But you know, you gotta know and trust people. There's a commercial on radio now where some construction company just hired a new superintendent using, I don't know, some networking program. And it was great. They matched themselves, they got it, but it's when do you get that superintendent? And that superintendent is going to be the lifeblood of your company. It's going to make sure that you make money, and you got to have the trust in them. So, and again, I started this out earlier. There's nothing wrong with expanding your business, trying new things, but you need to be able to say, yeah, this is very similar to that, and it's not a huge leap of faith. And again, incremental change is great. Sudden major change, you got to look at it. Equipment. One of my past lives with IDOT, and they did not allow sub-consultants or subcontractors to rent equipment. They had to own it, which was patently unfair to minorities. So we changed the rules. But you got to know what's the right equipment for the job. You don't want to get something too big. You don't want something too small, because then you won't have the productivity. So, and how does your staffing work? You know, some of you mentioned that you're union. Okay, well, the best thing to be is a 150 operator in this world, because they get paid to not show up. But the contractor's got to estimate that, has to make sure that they know what the heck they're doing. And you've got to plan for rain days. You got to plan for things not to be there for delays. So you got to look at your staffing and how do you do it? And again, cash flow. Cash is king on every job. You have to have your financing. Now I know CTA has ways to help you finance, hook you up with banks and things like that. The gentleman who said he's doing masonry at 4 banks, well, I'm hoping you're getting a line of credit from some of those banks by showing them that you can do the work and expand your line of credit. So next slide. There we go. Resources and teaming. You know, can you do the whole plumbing job on a 50-story building, or can you be part of a consortium of firms? You know, right now, if you look at the work that's not going on at the airport, there's a lot of big teams, and the construction manager's at risk, and there are going to be bigger teams for the contractors. Why? Because there's a lot of work. You've got to be able to spread out the work. You need to be able to get people, and you know, whether it's good or bad that we have this pandemic, 2021 was going to be a real bear for finding companies, for finding people, tradespeople, and things like that. Now, with everything spread out by at least a year, if not 2 or more, yeah, we're not going to hit that peak. People were worried that the DBEs would graduate, and that there wasn't a DBE to follow through in terms of what they do. And you know, for somebody like CTA, everything is a DBE. For something like IDOT, it's all DBE. Tollway's a little different. So you can manage through that with the M and WBE. But you know, if something's a DBE, you graduate, you're done, and somebody's got to come and backfill you. So you know, and again, the teaming, like I said before, the RFP is out. it's tough to get on a team. So you want those early discussions. If you look at this, and I've got it, the last slide will be the city's look ahead. And they do it for everybody. But you've got to show what you as a sub are bringing to that prime that's unique, that they can't get from 3 or 4 of your competitors. So what do you have that's better? A better way to build a mousetrap, a better way to keep on schedule, a better way to communicate? That's what you got to be able to show the primes. So next slide. Contract terms and conditions. This is where I said in the beginning, read the contract. Time is of the essence is in every government contract. And you got to look at that. Because if you think you can hold out until you get better terms, it's not going to work. Time is of the essence, which means you've got to work unless you're stopped. And stopped by the prime or by the owner. So early submittals, we're dealing with the city of Chicago now. They're moving their offices, and we begged for early submittals from the contractor. And we absolutely said, you got to get them in, long lead items, got to get them approved. Well, right now, they couldn't get a soap dispenser. So now they're going to end up paying out of the yin-yang for a soap dispenser because they didn't order it early enough, and they've got to get a different one. So getting those early submittals, getting those things in and pushing for approval, that's what you've got to do. And everybody keeps a submittal log. And if the agency or designer's not reviewing it, make sure you keep track of that, because that will help protect you. If the architect is allowed 2 weeks and he's taken 4, that's a delay to you. So now this will get to specific CTA. Track outages and timing of closures. When they talk about a 54-hour closure on CTA, they don't mean 54 hours and 35 minutes. They don't mean 54 hours and 30 seconds. They mean less than 54 hours. And there's big damages if you don't return the tracks to service. There's also damages for the tollway. If you don't return a lane to service, they feel that they're losing cash paying customers because they have backups. So understand that. And my first 54-hour shutdown was on one of the stations on the North Red Line. And our resident engineer was out there, and she felt she was smarter than everybody else. And I said, no, you've got to schedule hour by hour. You have to put it in your gut. If I'm not at this point Saturday at noon, I need a recovery plan. If I'm not at this point Saturday at midnight, I need a recovery plan. And we almost lost, or the contractor almost lost, returning the tracks on time. So you've got to do hour by hour scheduling. And you've got to, in your gut, you have to know where you're at when you're working on a CTA project or some critical project. Literally, damages for delay are key. Returning tracks to service, to revenue service, is key, although not as key now that CTA is, what are you guys down 30% or down to 30% of what you were before? But the delay and the damages are still critical. You don't want people showing up late to work. And if there's a firm completion date, there's a firm completion date. And a lot of times there's incentives and disincentives in that. And you have to look at that. And you have to, if somebody's going to disincentivize you, in other words, penalize you, you want the uptick too. You know, if you finish early, you want a piece of the early completion. So, you know, you got to balance that. You've got to look at where you fit in that contractor schedule. But the key thing is know what these say. Know what the contract says. Go ahead. Preliminary baseline schedule. Somebody said that they're working on RPM. There's probably a couple of people. Yeah, I don't know what they're on anymore. I've been away from the project now for a year. But the schedule has been revised upon revised upon revised. Just because of coordination with utilities, coordination with everything else. Well, that causes people to spend more money. So, you know, you've got to know what that is. And CTA is big about factoring track outages and inefficiencies. But you, if you're working on a track, also have to be very big about safety. Because trains do not forgive. The third rail does not forgive. So you've got to be used to working around those things and understand those inefficiencies. All too often now, people are working around the clock and 12 months out of the year. Yeah, or if not 12, at least 10. So you've got to understand winter conditions. You got to understand what happens with ice and the buildup of ice in the ballast and how that impacts everything. And this I will not, this is not mine. You have known unknowns. You know something's going to come up. You just don't know what it is. And you know, it may be on a track outage. It may be with an injury or something like that. And you have unknown unknowns. Murphy's Law. Something's going to happen that you just cannot prepare for. So just understand that you've got to have contingencies in there. You've got to understand some, oh my gosh, is going to come up and you're not going to be able to anticipate it unless you've allowed for it in your schedule. And then lastly, change conditions. There hasn't been a project built without a change order ever. But if the plans say you should find this piece of concrete in this location and it's not there, take out this. Take the pictures, show as clearly as you can, because you've got to prove change conditions. And was it an error by the designer? Was it, you know, an error by the utility who put it in 1908? Who knows? But there are change conditions. So you have to keep track of those. Don't think you're going to remember them. Write them down. And let's go to the next one because I think okay. Preliminary schedule of quantities. No, read whatever quantity or whatever, excuse me, item you're supplying to this contract. Know what everything is included in it. Every washer, every nut, every bolt, everything. And understand that certain items can have to follow in precedence as they're putting them together. You may think you can get a jump start by putting in this little widget, but when you get a call from the other subcontractor saying you put your widget in and you weren't supposed to, now take it out. That's an inefficiency on your part that's probably not put in your bid. So you need to understand how this contract's going to work. And that's why the schedule is absolutely key. Knowing how things go together. And this is where communication is king. Every superintendent on the job is the key person. He's the person that schedules people. He's the person that's making sure production is going in. He's the person that you need to make your best friend. And they may be mean and nasty and things like that, but you can't be mean back to them, because they'll get you sometime and they'll cost you money. So one thing I tell contractors, if you're going to be on a job, find out what your mobilization area is going to be, because you're not estimating in there that you've got to move your mobilization area 4 times because the painter wants to get in there or somebody else wants to get in there. Know where your mobilization area is and guard it, protect it. And then with material storage, when do you get paid? When the material shows up on site and is installed. But you've got to store it someplace, and you've got to have a secure storage. So make sure you know where it's at, and that the minimum length of walking the material, moving the material is what you have. Because again, those inefficiencies won't kill you in a day. They're like 1,000 razor cuts though. So,
Hey, Tim.
Yep.
I think we had a hand raised.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I missed it.
No, it's okay. Melissa, did you have a quick question?
Yes, thank you. Back to scheduling things that you're not, the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Just can you tell me exactly how do you add that into a schedule?
Well, if you know everything's going to take 8 hours, and it's a repetitive 8 hours, you need to make sure that, you know, and it's 5 days, so that's 40 hours. You need to make sure you've got 42 or 44 hours somewhere in your back, or 4 extra hours or 2 extra hours somewhere in your back pocket, because somebody's going to come and they're going to step on concrete. Somebody's going to come and steal a tool. And you're going to have to run out and get it, or, you know, refinish the concrete. So that's what I mean by something's going to happen. You just don't know what.
How do I title that?
Contingency.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, when preparing your bid, you got to have a good relationship with your prime, because if he sees contingency in there, he's probably going to go, get it out. There's no contingency on this job. So, you know, you got to kind of make sure you hide it in the right place.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Because if you stick it out there, they're going to swipe at it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So payment progress documentation. If you're in the concrete world, if you're in the asphalt world, it's tickets. You need to keep those tickets. You need to make sure you give the ticket to the inspector, and keep your copies of those tickets, because that's how you get paid. And you need to make sure that you're measuring your own quantities and not trusting the inspector / resident engineer. You can walk with them and measure the quantities together. That's fine. But, you know, don't just accept a piece of paper from that inspector that says, here's my quantities for you. And then final quantities, that's where you need all the documentation. And it's not CTA's fault, it's FTA's fault and IDOT's fault that they want all this documentation before they'll pay out the last of the money. And they're going to rely on you. And if you can't provide that documentation as a sub, you're in trouble. So, okay, next one. Timely document is kind of repeats itself just a little, but the RFIs, requests for information, submittals and responses. Now you're on the subcontractor side and the plans don't look clear. You want to ask for information. So you put it back in the owner's court or the designer's court, and then make sure those responses are timely. Non-conformance notices, this is a CTA term. You've put in something that A, wasn't inspected, B, doesn't meet the specifications, or something like that. And if you get a non-conformance issued to you, they won't pay you. So you got to clear those real quick. So rights and responsibilities, it's generally in the contract. You have a responsibility to document. You also have a right to question the prime. And I say it again, I'll hold up my phone. Progress photos. Date stamp them, time stamp them. That way you know what was done, when it was done, because 2 months from now, you're never going to remember. And then it's the burden of proof. Have your superintendent or your person in charge out there keep a daily diary, because CTA is, their construction manager is, the prime contractor probably is, and when push comes to shove, whoever has best documentation, photos, daily diaries, they're going to win. So, and don't wait for a change. Nobody's going to ask you, well, some firms do, some clients do, ask you, are there any change orders? You got to raise your hand real quick and tell them. So, and then once you get to the resolution, don't stay mad at people. Put it behind you, move on, learn a bad lesson, learn a good lesson, but yeah, you can't hold a grudge on a job. And because if you hold a grudge on this job, that prime is not going to call you back. So, okay, next one. Closeout and resolution. If you have heard this 4 times during this presentation, you're going to hear it a 5th time. Documentation, documentation, documentation. Whether it's a ticket, whether it's a factory drawing, whether it's an approval from an inspector, you've got to have that. You've got to make sure you have it. You've got to have your material certification, because if you don't, they ding you. And get your waivers of lien from your suppliers so that you're not left holding the bag. Because if you don't get those waivers of lien and your supplier comes back at you, you're in trouble. And lastly, evaluations. After the dust is settled, sit down with the superintendent, sit down with the prime, and get a self-evaluation. Where can I do better? Where did I excel? Where didn't I meet your expectations? Where did I beat your expectations? That's what you want out of the evaluation, so that you learn as you're doing. So I think that's the, oh no, one more. There's one more. Buying plan. Now this is dated. I'm sorry I didn't insert the new one. On the City of Chicago Department of Procurement site, they have their buying plan. CTA also has their buying plan on their site. And I think CTA is also on the city's buying plan. So this tells you what to expect over the next 12 months. And this is where you get those conversations started with primes, with suppliers, with different people. This is your early warning. Metro, I believe, has one. Tollway has one. IDOT's got one. They just give the entire year. They don't tell you when it's coming out. But this is very detailed in terms of what quarter something's going to come out, the type of work that it is, the approximate budget that it is. So now questions. Oh,
Any
come on now.
questions for Tim?
You don't want to make me ask questions.
Hey, hi, Tim. This is Dibby.
Hey, how are you?
Good, Tim. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. You don't have a picture on there, though.
Tim?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Well, as I didn't get a chance to introduce myself earlier, but I'm a photographer, and I have a deep enjoyment of railroad photography. And seeing that people want to put pictures more and more into the process is fantastic news, because photography provides, I think, at least a couple of separate things: workplace safety documentation, community service improvements, and a way to train your workforce in safety best practices through the proverbial picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, it's really true.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's where the contractor should avail himself of it. Because, yeah, it's proof that something happened or didn't happen. So, anything else?
Tim, I have a question. This is Juan
Sure.
Pablo. I don't know if you covered it. I heard you talking about it, and I had to take a quick phone call. But in terms of those unknown unknowns, right, and those unknown conditions,
yep.
Can you talk a little bit more about making sure you document those, and how do you build in, or how do you deal with a situation when another sub is responsible for a scope of work that affects your scope of work? So if they fall behind, technically you fall behind, right? And
yeah.
How do you correct for that? How do you document it so that if there are any liquidated damages that result in schedule shifts, you don't get hit with those because of that?
Right. And that's why in the beginning talked about the baseline schedule. And always keep up with those schedules, because that the baseline schedule is the Bible for the legs. Now, I talked a bit about shutdowns, 54-hour shutdowns, and things like that. That's a slightly different thing, but yeah, you got to document there, and that's why, in my mind, an hour by hour schedule and a 54-hour shutdown is absolutely key, because you know when the other sub is supposed to complete, so you can start your work. And again, it's documented. And that's the key thing. And again, what is it? It's daily diaries and it's photos. And whoever has the strongest documentation at the end of the day will win. If you have no documentation, you go, I think it happened on this day, you're doomed. Okay, you're explaining and you've already lost. But if you or your superintendent can pull out the daily diary and say, on this day at this time, yeah, this was the anomaly that happened, and it wasn't me that did it. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Melissa, is that your hand raised from earlier, or is that a new question?
You're on mute.
Okay.
Okay.
Marina?
Anybody else?
Oh, hi. My question is, this is what I encounter the most. We agree, we have the capability, we have all our forces going. When we encounter a change order, and obviously the contract says you are not supposed to do any change unless the company gives you the order to proceed.
Right.
And we get the email, the call, and this and that, and they're very reluctant to release a change order right away until it goes through, I don't know how many tables, because they always pass it through, I don't know how many people. And at the end, you don't want to be the contractor that holds the whole job because you don't want to do the work, but at the same time, you are the contractor that always ends up not getting paid because at the end they did not approve the work. So, or the payment.
Right.
So that's my biggest concern. And obviously our guys in the field want to cooperate with the project manager and once again, keep the flow of the work. But this is the biggest thing that I encounter. Like, what is your advice when I hit that? Because once again, when it comes down to payment, nobody wants to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we have the email saying proceed, but they don't do it. So.
Right. Here's what I know. CTA, the Department of Aviation, they have weekly roundtable meetings with their procurement, with their minority people, with legal, and they're dealing with these change orders. And this is where the construction manager and everybody, they're also at these roundtables, and they're supposed to be bringing it up. As I said, we're doing a city move every Tuesday. We have a meeting, everybody's there, decisions are made, and they move on. But I do know that Jamie Ree out at the airport has changed and reverted back to what they used to do on change orders is once they prove it, at the roundtable meeting, they're allowed to pay half on the next monthly voucher. And then once everything is finalized and work is done, they pay the second half. I don't know if RPM is doing that now. I know that, I don't know if they're getting paid every other week or how they're working it. But yeah, I do know Department of Aviation has resolved those issues, and I don't know if CTA, are your issues with CTA or IDOT or the tollway?
It's CTA. CTA.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. Get that construction manager out there.
Yes. No, but seriously, I don't have the answer for you, Marina, but we are your internal advocate. So let's if you can shoot me some information about that issue, or maybe we can schedule some time to talk about it, so that we can, we want to make sure that we remove as many barriers to our small businesses as possible. And so if you're experiencing these challenges, we can see how we can address it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mike, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes. I'm Mike with Allstate Concrete Cutting.
Okay.
I've been on the red and purple line expansion since December, doing stabilization, a lot of stabilization out there, which is all unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
And I've learned the best way to work with the contractors on this is to be fair on both. If you're fair to them, they're going to be fair to you. If you come out and just take and want and don't give, well, especially with a lot of unknown unknowns, you're not going to get anywhere spinning your wheels, and you're going to create enemies. So
you're in the embankment area then?
Yes, a lot of the deep drilling, the stabilization on all the on the walls, and on the I don't know what you call them, the elevated street level beams, around them. On the wedding tiers. We're doing we're working alongside the guys that are doing micropod. We're doing all the cores, and you learn. A lot of times they go out there and we're supposed to be our date, and it's not. And
and they send you home.
They send you home, and it's fine. I get it, because it does change so much when there's unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
And I learned in the beginning I was a little tougher and tried to get my way, and I learned real quick that You try to act that way and you're going to learn that you're not going to be there for long, or you're going to have headaches every day. So I reversed and tried something new and did it on my own and didn't involve anybody, and it worked.
Yeah.
It's give and take. You talk, you communicate with the superintendents and say, okay, this is what I had. This is what you had. You came out there, you saw what you had.
Yeah. And that's why I said, you cannot honk off that superintendent because you don't know when he's going to get you.
And they do, and it hurts. So it's better just to be, the wise thing for everybody here is to recognize that sometimes you need to give. You know, when you build that relationship, then you have a communication line where you can talk about it with them. And you need to learn that it's not just you, it's everybody. Everybody's having to give down the line. And the more that you understand you're working together, and sometimes things happen out there, especially on the stabilization side because of the unknowns, that things start to work better when everybody starts to flow better, when the communications amongst the different subs starts to come together.
I don't know if it'll help, but in having done research, we were, my previous firm, they're the CMs on it. It's Arcadis Jacobs, or it's Elevated Transit Partners, or whatever they are. And having done the research on it, nobody has ever done a job like this anywhere in North America. So that's
got some of the most that's part of it. So I've got some really, really tremendous experience that nobody can take. I've had to change up an equipment to, you know, as we went through it, and I've gotten it down to a science now, and it's fun. I enjoy doing things that are different or unknown because, you know, it challenges you to grow and think and plan and, you know, and discuss and come up with ideas. And I like that type of work of, you know, playing with that because you know, it's different than the monotonous doing, you know, sawing the road all day long. You know, let's go core, you know, 24-inch deep holes, you know, at 45 degrees or 30 degrees, and they change up, or let's do a 12-inch, 7-foot, 8-foot. You know, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Then you got to pull the slugs, you know.
Well, you're trial by fire. So, anybody else? That's it. Well, thank you all. You've got my presentation, I believe, so you can ship it out. And you can give my contact information to everybody.
Oh, I froze there for a second. If you said anything, I may have missed it, Tim.
Oh,
okay. Repeat it?
I think that's it. You've got my presentation. And you can give people my contact information if you need to.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tim. I'm sure the group, as we continue to discuss and continue to go through, we will probably circle back with some questions. I'll definitely provide the presentation if that's okay with your contact information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's get Tim a round of applause. Thank you.
And thank you guys. Great questions. Oops.
Good seeing you.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. You can drop off. We're going to stay on, Tim. All right, guys, it is 5:04, and although our guest presenter is done with his presentation, you all are not off the hook. I am going to figure out something for us to do for a little bit of the second half of the class. So a couple of quick questions to determine what that looks like. How many of you all have capability statements? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of, sort of, maybe. Awesome. And then another question is, I'm sorry, what was that? And then the other question is, how many of you all have registered as a CTA vendor? 1? Maybe 1? Okay, well, we have 2 suppliers.
Facet is registered.
Awesome, awesome. Mike, you should be, right? Mike and Curtis?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe? All right.
Yeah, I
All right,
don't know
well,
about that.
I'm not sure.
awesome. All right, so we'll cover where you should go, because we absolutely want all of you to be registered within CTA's database. It's where we go to find who our DBEs are and what categories. It's where we use to disseminate any outreach events, contract opportunities, etc. And it's a place where you know, some of our primes go to find other diverse suppliers. So you definitely want to be there. So 5:06, we'll take a standing break, and we'll come right back at 5:10, and we'll talk about capability statements and registering as a CTA vendor.
Hey, Chanel. Can she hear me?
She may be away. We just coming back from our little 5-minute standing break, so she may not have returned just yet.
Okay. So I was saying that I noticed that, actually, I thought you was Chanel. My bad. What's your name?
Jamie Neely.
Oh my God, I done made you a whole other name. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Chanel and I were on the same team, so you've done a lot of your communication with Chanel.
Okay, my bad, Jamie. So I was saying that I noticed that everyone in the chat didn't put their business information, and I was just asking her, which I sent it to the chat, so I guess I should just wait, but I was just asking her, can we do a hard copy and then send it out so everybody can have a list of who was in the group?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that 2 parts. So one is that's our way of collecting attendance by putting your name in the inbox, because Zoom doesn't record every time who's on the line. So a lot of the reason why people were putting their information in was to make sure that we were capturing attendance.
Oh, well, I'm in trouble because I never put.
That's okay. And then but second to that, I'm going to create like a contact list with all of you all's information. I'll send that out separately.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jamie.
Sure thing. All right, everyone, it's 5:12. If we can huddle back in. And I'll just share my screen here. Uh-oh, nope, not that one.
Jamie?
Yes.
Hi, can you please put your email address in the chat?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I want to reach out to you.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen with the Chicago Transit Authority website? No, Beatrice? Chanel, I saw you say yes.
I can see it.
Okay, cool.
I think I have everyone in front of it, so.
Oh, got it, yep. So again, the importance of vendor registration, not only with with CTA, but with all public or private entities, is because this is how and where we use to find who our potential or prospective suppliers or contractors could be. So there may be missed opportunities if you aren't there. So as you think about, again, thinking about CTA and beyond, when you think about who you're interested in doing business with, we had that conversation week 1, business opportunities. So you think about who your ideal clients are, whether it's public or private, kind of create I don't know if you have a CRM or a spreadsheet even, of who those agencies are, and then make sure you register as a vendor with each of them, because again, it may be missed opportunities of being notified of what the contract opportunities are, what other procurement activities are going on. So for CTA, ours is, and I try to include it in our reminders on the email because I don't want you all to miss out, but it's at this landing page. And if you are not an existing vendor, you would just go ahead and click CTA New Vendors. Oftentimes, it'll ask most of your business information, contact information, etc. Here's where you would click CTA vendor registration. If you want to know if you want to find yourself as a DBE or SBE, you can, no, that's a certification. Sorry. If you have not certified as a DBE and know that CTA only accepts the disadvantaged business enterprise, you can start your certification there. If you want to look to see if you are certified, or for any other DBEs, you can search under the Illinois UCP. For those of you who may not know, the Illinois UCP, Illinois Unified Certification Program, is a conglomerate that includes CTA, Metra, PACE, IDOT, and the city of Chicago. We all in each certify the DBE certification, and we all recognize each other's DBE certification. So you don't have to select CTA complete your DBE certification. You can go to either one of them and we'll still accept it, but you have to have the DBE certification. Going back up to the CTA vendor registration, you will click here. You will then click New iSupplier Registration. And here's what it'll allow you to create a password and, the user ID and password and et cetera. And then you'll begin to complete the registration. Any questions about the vendor registration? How many of you all are DBE certified again? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So, not that you have to be DBE certified, but we know that our CTA opportunities, our large projects have DBE spin goals attached to them. So when our primes are looking for subs, it helps them help us meet our diversity spin goals by the subs being DBE certified. Yes, Mike?
Isn't there somewhere I can look to see if I'm already
Say it
set up?
again?
Isn't there somewhere I can look to see if I'm set up in that system?
Let me see what happens when I hit existing iSupplier. It's gonna keep taking me back to Oracle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can search if you on your end. I know we can search to see if you're in our system.
We're doing that same thing you're getting right there when you go
Okay.
to Oracle.
You
Okay.
can log into, sorry, Jamie, you can log in using that Oracle login that you would have been provided upon registration. And I believe there's a way to search. Go back to vendor registration, Jamie. And then click on existing.
It prompted for me to log in.
Yeah, so that's because you've got your employee login, but you would put, for the vendors, you would put whatever username and password you signed up with for registration. And if you forgot, at the bottom it says CTA suppliers forgot your username password, you can use that link.
Right here. Sorry, I'm trying to get this question. Let's see. Okay, any questions about the vendor registration?
It wouldn't be the same as your normal DBE registration, right?
Yeah, you're DBE certified. I am probably 100% sure you're in our database. Did you go through CTA with your certification?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you're probably there. We can confirm that for you though, Mike.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is just a template of a capability statement. So we're providing a lot of education about the technical pieces of construction or construction related professional services, contracting, right, and contract management, but we still have to get the contracts, right? And so part of that, particularly in this virtual space, is how do we build these relationships? How do we reach out to these primes and agencies? How do we make sales? How do we sell during COVID or any other day for that matter, but how do we sell during COVID? The capability statement is a one-pager. As I talked about earlier, is being able to talk about what you do in 5 words. It's to really help train the brain of concisely articulating what you do. And so this capability statement, again, is another way that you can concisely articulate who you are, what do you do, who have you done it for, and what you can possibly do for the reviewer. It's highly recognized in the government space amongst all agencies, but also recognized in the private space as a value proposition statement. Very synonymous in document, but different in terms. And so what you want to include, and again, this is just a template, the look and feel of it should be every bit of your company, logo, branding, color scheme, font, etc. But the components of the capability statement should be very consistent. Those components are your core competencies. What do you do, right? While it seems very easy, sometimes as business owners, we're very passionate about what we do, And so this can become a very run-on sentence. And so to prevent that, maybe you can start this off with a couple of sentences, kind of briefing your services, and then go into some bullets, prioritizing your core, your primary services, down to, well, we do it a little bit, but we may not be aggressively chasing it, right? Another component is your past performance. So core competency says, what do you do? Past performance says, who have you done it for? So this is your opportunity to name drop, right? So you've worked hard, you've gotten some heavy hitter clients, you've been a sub to some good primes. Here's your opportunity, or worked on some big projects under some big primes. Here's your opportunity to name drop and talk about those. People do business with who they know, like, and trust, but I've also seen people pick up, an agency pick up, actually a prime example, I had one client, a WBE, really established, was knocking on the door of ComEd for several years, nothing, didn't get anything. Finally got a little small something with NICOR, dropped it on their capability statement. All of a sudden they became more attractive to ComEd, right? Because they knew it spoke to their capability. They knew that they had done business with one of the other utilities. So it spoke a little volume. So this is your opportunity to show who you've done business with, as long as you don't have any non-disclosure agreements. Of course, you don't want to violate those. But not only do you want to include who you've done it for, you want to detail a little bit about that project, right? And where you can quantify it. In some instances, if it's square footage, if it's the number of folks impacted, any way that you can quantify that project, only because people are attracted to numbers and tend to read around them. But you want to take maybe no more than 5 projects to list under your past performance. Any questions there? Oh, hi, Marina. That was sweet. Sorry, Marina. So yeah, so core competencies, what do you do? Past performance, who have you done it for? Next component is differentiators. What are you doing differently, right? Try to find a way to create a niche or a differentiator other than I'm a woman, I'm a minority, I'm a disadvantaged on business, right? That's always a cherry on top. We never come out the gate with, I'm a MBE or I'm a DBE, how do I do business with you? These folks are asked that probably 100 times a week. And so if you can find a way to spin your differentiator to make your business a little bit more attractive, that can help. Sometimes our differentiators isn't always that obvious. An accountant is an accountant is an accountant, right? They crunch numbers. How different can you be? But sometimes kind of peeling back the onion to determine, even if it's surveying your clients, why do they do business with you? Perhaps it's your pricing. Perhaps it's your service level agreements. Perhaps it's the materials, you're a green company, whatever that may be, you want to be able to highlight what your differentiators are. This is probably going to be the hardest section to kind of come up with. And then the last 2 sections are your contact information. Placing egos aside, if you are not, I know you may be CEO, president, but if you are not the most responsive person, let's maybe include another person. Sometimes we see a lot of info at, if that's kind of a dark hole of an email, don't include that. Let's make sure we put the most responsive contact information down. You'd be surprised how many times we've called on some of our firms that's in our registration and we don't get good contact information. So, and then over here to your right is your company data, those NAICS codes. Everyone's familiar with NAICS codes, show of hands. North American Industrial Classification Systems. Essentially, NAICS are a numeric description of the product or service of what you do. Most contracts or most opportunities are attached to NAICS codes. So when we're looking for DBE, sometimes we may search via the NAICS codes. So if you're unfamiliar with your NAICS code, simply go to NAICS.com, and that's NAICS.com. I'll type it in the chat box too. And you can do a search, and the thing on the right-hand side, it says search NAICS codes. And so what I encourage you to do, and even if you've identified NAICS code in the past, it's always good to do a refresher to make sure that your current certification shows all of you, or you're certified to all of your current NAICS codes. So as the business grows, you may bring on new services that your certification may not be covering under that NAICS code. So always good to do a refresher. Also know that NAICS codes renew every 10 years with the US Census. So if you already identify your NAICS code and don't feel like doing it now, once the census is complete, be sure to go back and revisit your NAICS codes, because some may have shifted, some additional NAICS codes may be added, and you want to make sure that your business is representing your products and services appropriately. So here's where you would provide your NAICS codes. You can have several NAICS codes, but you don't want to be the, what does this business really do? Because you have so many and they're so vastly different, right? So be very thoughtful about how you brand brand your company via the NAICS codes. You also want to list them as your primary NAICS codes. Oftentimes, vendor registrations may ask you for 1 or 2 primary NAICS codes. Be prepared to make sure that 1 or 2 are primary, and then again, the rest kind of fall into, we'll do it, but we may not be actively chasing it. Any certifications? Again, this is the cherry on top. It's not the differentiator, but you want to highlight which certifications you may have here, diverse certifications, and who they're certified with. So there are more than one WBE and there are more than one DBE. So if you're certified with the WBE with the City of Chicago or Cook County, you can put City of Chicago WBE or through WeBank, and the same thing for the MBE certification. If you have not yet received the approval confirmation of your DBE, your certifications, we will not include it here. We'll wait until we actually get the approval, because again, we just don't want to misrepresent the company in the event that a prime needs that DBE firm and they see it on your CAPE statement and they call you and you're like, well, it's pending, it should be done, and then maybe a lost opportunity. And unfortunately, they may not call us back. So we'll wait until we actually get it. Any industry certifications, project management, technology, union, any industry affiliations that, again, because this document is to kind of sell your credibility, that you want to include here. Your company footprint, where's your reach? If it's just Chicagoland or Midwest, or I heard someone Hawaii and Illinois, whatever your project reaches, that's good to know in the event of one picks it up. They may be across the border in Indiana. Can they use you? Are you interested? They'll know. They accept credit card and purchase cards. That's more on the federal end, because federal pays via ACH in 2 weeks, and probably a lot less needed on your standard capability statement. Same for GSA schedule. That's kind of federal. And again, with employees, unless you're a manufacturer, the latter 3 of these are probably not as relevant for your general capability statement. And when I say general, because you may have one general one. So last week we held a non-revenue facility outreach event. In a normal instance, we would have been in a room, you would have had your capability statements, it would have been an opportunity for you to pass them out, and you have one general one. But let's say you get called for a meeting or introduction meeting, you may want to tailor this based on the opportunity or based on the meeting. If you're meeting with transportation, you may want to put a lot of your transportation experience on your past performance. If you go and meet with aviation, you may want to sell to your aviation experience, right? So you tailor it much like a resume, because this is what this is for your business, is how do I make this more, how do I connect this more to the person who may be reviewing it? Any thoughts or questions about this? Cool. And again, this is just a template, and I can forward it to you for your reference and how you create yours. And this is something that, hey, you go on CTA's website, you look up the buy-in plan, you see something that you're interested in down the line. You then go to CTA's website, you look up some previously awarded contracts so that you can identify some primes that's already worked with CTA. And then you email the prime. You say, hey, prime, I see that you worked on XYZ project with CTA. I also see this upcoming thing they have going on coming up Q2 next year. I've attached my capability statement. I'm hoping I can get some time to talk to you about it, right? So it's another element of conversation. So they don't have to go and burden themselves and do homework and who you are, what you've done. You also don't inundate the body of the email by trying to fit in everything about who you are and why they should do business with you. Rather, you just attach that and it kind of does a lot of the selling and has a lot of the information that they will want to know. And I see Mike. Thank you, Mike. You shared your capability statement. Thank you. And again, take a look at Mike's. You know, it's a resume. I hate sharing my resume because everyone's going to have an opinion about it. It's like, no, this section should go here. You should word it here. You're going to get the similar feedback with your capability statement, a lot of opinion. But what you want to do most is make sure you sell your business in the best way that that it represents what you stand for and what you do. Cool, cool, cool. All right, guys. Well, I think I'll get this over to you. I have, I'll hit send on last week's presentation. I'll also get this week's presentation out. In addition to the CAPE statement template, if you have any questions in between time, feel free to reach out to myself, Chanel, or Tim for this week's conversation. Next week, we have getting paid and closing it out with Jacobs Engineering Group. So do a little bit of homework, visit their website, see what they have going on. If you find anything that you can slip into your introduction, I'm sure to make them feel good about joining us every week. All right, guys. See you same time, same place next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good week.
You too.